Hello, my beautiful Instagram friends. I'm Ashley Sunshine. I just came back from a month-long pilgrimage in Europe. I went to England, to France, and then to Spain. And wow, I have so many stories to share. So I've been doing a bit of a series of weekly live sharing. So last week I spoke about what made me choose to go to England. And how I was guided to go there and which spots I chose and why. And this video is about my time in Avalon in Glastonbury, which was over the summer solstice. So I'm just gonna hang out for a few minutes to see if anyone else will join. And if you're watching the replay, you can take a nice deep breath with me. And it's my prayer and intention that this story be a bit of a pilgrimage for you, that you're able to connect to that place of Avalon within you, even if you haven't physically been there before, that it awakens something within you. And if you have been there before, that it awakens another layer of what you've already discovered there. And that's also what I found by repeating pilgrimages. Is that it helps us to uncover another layer and actually go deeper and have the experience be more rich and life-changing. So I did this pilgrimage through France this summer of Mary Magdalene for the second time, the second year in a row. And doing it twice really allowed for a deeper experience within my being and allowed me to connect more deeply to the codes and to really see the work that we're doing when we do this pilgrimage grid work, that we're awakening dormant energies, that we're opening portals that have been seeded by our ancestors and have been laying dormant for hundreds or thousands of years. And because our consciousness is now able to connect with those seeds that have been planted by our ancestors, we're here to awaken them, but on a new level, on a level that hasn't been seen before, because it's not like we're going back to the old ways, right? We're taking this ancient wisdom, resurrecting it, and then letting it become something new within our own consciousness and being. So hi, if you are joining me, I'm also open to questions, and if you're watching the replay, you can always pop some questions in and I'll make sure to answer them all. I highly recommend a visit to Avalon if you feel called, if you haven't been there before. It's really a powerful portal and a vortex, and I feel like I need to go spend there another 3 weeks just by myself to really feel. So I will at some point be returning. I was there for 4 days from the 18th to 22nd of June, so right over the summer solstice. So I got to experience that high holiday in Avalon, which is obviously a holiday from the wheel of the year in the Celtic and pagan traditions and the Druid. And so they celebrate really finely these rituals for each of these moments on the wheel of the year, the earth holidays. So I got to be there for the summer solstice ritual at the White Spring. There were also pilgrimages that the Goddess Temple did in Glastonbury, that they walked down to the river and did a ritual with the river for the summer solstice. There were many people up at the Tor, which is the tower on the hill in the center of the town, to be there all night and play music all night and then watch the sunrise together. I did make it up there for the sunrise, but it was cloudy, although it was like really powerful energy just to be there. And I got to fall asleep a couple hours before sunrise and wake up with everybody celebrating the sunrise. So that was so beautiful. So it was really wild because on my way to Avalon, I drove my rental car from Cornwall, which is the southwestern peninsula of England, where it's connected to the Michael Apollo ley line. So there's one corner of the Michael Apollo ley line is in Mount Carmel, which is right where I live, and the other end of it is the south tip of Ireland and the tip of Cornwall, where there's this temple castle tower called St. Michael's Mount. It's an island as well. I'll share a picture of that in my stories because it's so cool. And there's a path that leads to this island that's only accessible on low tide. So it's a really magical place. And that's the other end of this ley line. and Glastonbury, the ley line runs through Glastonbury as well. So I drove from Cornwall to Glastonbury on the morning of the 18th, and on that morning, I discovered that my good friend Paul, Cockatoo Paul, passed away. And it was unexpected. It was, really a surprise. And I was shocked and in such a state. I was mourning, and I had to drive from my Airbnb in Cornwall to my Airbnb in Glastonbury, and I was a hot mess. I was meeting a sister who was meeting me from London. So I shared with her what I was going through, and she was so there for me and support me. Thank you, Amy, for supporting me so much in processing the loss of my friend and the realization that I'm never going to see him again. And he meant so much to me, and he was such a warrior in my life, showed me so many things about nature, survival, getting yourself out there, living life to the fullest. I mean, he was a living example of living life to the fullest. And I was just so sad that the world has lost this man, and that I have lost this man. And so his name is Paul, okay? And I'm driving to Avalon, and I'm remembering that I have a Merlin guide. So a few years back, I even made a podcast about it. I have a podcast episode called Spirit Guides. And in that episode, I shared about channeling one of my spirit guides. One of my main spirit guides is a Merlin. So like a wizard, like Dumbledore. And I asked him what his name is, and he told me his name is Paul. And I was like, really? Like, you're a druid, wizard, and your name is Paul? I was like, okay, fine. And a few months after I got this download and met Paul and received his name, my good friend gave me a book called Merlin, the lost arts of the druid wizards, or something like that. And it was full of these different practices that you could, that the druids would do, these magical arts that the druids would participate in. And I was reading the book and going through, and on one of the pages, there's a naming practice, a naming ritual. And one of the names in the druid tradition is Paul, Pawl. And I was blown away. And this was for me a total confirmation that my spirit guide's druid name is Paul. So on my way to Avalon, I'm driving from Cornwall to Avalon, I realized that my friend Paul passed away, and that he's related to my Merlin spirit guide. So I felt like I was driving back to Avalon to connect these dots and to actually build a new relationship with my friend Paul, who passed away, and my spirit guide Paul, and to feel them connected, to feel them united. And so this was my initiation in Glastonbury, in Avalon, was to not only to heal a part of my inner masculine, but to initiate into deeper relationship with my Merlin guide, if that makes sense to you. So I got to Glastonbury, and I was in such mourning and confusion and sadness. And I remember sitting with Amy in the little cafe when we first arrived, and I was showing her pictures of Paul, and she was so supportive. She was like, tell me all the stories. And I'm telling her, and she even teared up at some point. It just made me feel so seen and held. Hello, Nico. And then we went to do a private immersion in the waters of Avalon. So somehow I got hooked up with having private space in one of these sacred springs, and I was able to just do so much womb work and prayer and communion with the waters and immersion in this insane, beautiful temple to really call in that next level support from my guides, to really feel my soul connection with the divine masculine. And if you know, the White Spring and the Chalice well, they're right next to each other, and there are some people in the town working on consciously uniting them, because the ancient myths and tales tell that these springs rise up. The white spring is the masculine. The Chalice well is the feminine. This is like highly iron rich water, so they're red, and then there's like the white, and they mix to form this sacred union. And someone told me while I was there that we are so lucky in Avalon, in Glastonbury, we're so lucky that they didn't like close off the springs and turn them into, usual city water infrastructure. And the fact that these springs can keep flowing in the way that they do, and that people are welcome to come and commune with them as temple work, it actually keeps the town a portal. It keeps the magic that was seeded by our ancestors in this town alive. The fact that the waters can flow. So this just confirmed in my mind the importance of working with water, the importance of freeing the waterways, and doing that even energetically, right? Like continuing to pray and give back to the waters, prayers that all waters run clean, feeling like freeing the water so they can gush again. And that also has to do with the waters in our bodies, freeing our pleasure channels so that our internal water can flow again, can gush out, can release in rapture, in pleasure of evolution itself. So I love talking to that man outside the spring. And the beautiful thing about Avalon, there's just like a lot of people around who understand the holiness and are deeply connected to returning back to doing their prayers. Like their church is these springs. Their church is these water temples. Their church is the goddess house. The goddess house in Glastonbury has different rooms dedicated to different goddesses. So it's just magical when you walk in there. You go into a room and you feel the energy of Bridget, and it's all surrounded and like gives you these activations, and you just feel like you now know a little bit more about Bridget and her energy. And there were many others, and it was so beautiful to be in there. And then there's the goddess temple as well, which had a Lady of Avalon painting. And one of the things too about places like Glastonbury is they're so full of art and expression of the goddess that it just inspires art out of you. So this is one of the big downloads that I got, was like my inspiration to create art really came back. And I just bought some canvases, and I'm devoted to creating some more paintings because of this inspiration. And I took a lot of pictures to capture that inspiration so that I can recreate a little bit of that energy in my own home temple space. So these people are really aware of these power points, these energetic portals. And so they're returning back and continuing to work with them. Like I met the cutest little old lady at the spring. She would come and she sings, and she has this little furry hat on, and she's singing to the water, and she's just there wearing her dresses, probably 75 years old, and just so content with herself, coming and praying at her spring and just showing herself. And I remember telling her, I really love your hat. And she's like, it is a magical hat, isn't it? And it's like, that's so cute. She just gets it. She just gets it. It's like, what if life could be that magical and whimsical? And this is a word of Avalon, is whimsical. There's a very whimsical energy there, which is, really, really powerful. Okay. So it's like teaching us to be lighthearted with life, that life gets to be easy, that life gets to be easeful. And we are on the brink of evolution from the dual world to the triple. So Richard Rudd speaks about this in his Gene Keys work, about how we've evolved from the oneness of you look at animals, they're living in oneness with all things. They are present, they are responding to what is, they're not in their heads, they're not distracted, they're fully immersed in the oneness of the movement of nature. Humans were like that too in the beginning. At some point, the epoch changed from the oneness animal mentality to the dualism. And that came with our intellect, with the frontal lobe of the brain turning on, and our ability to start seeing things as separate, our ability to judge, our ability to think about what other people might be thinking, right? Rather than just being present with our own thoughts. So something happened where we entered into this dualism, and our intellect became the center of our reality. And we see that so strongly now with the AI and all the technology and all of the ravishing of our planet in order to, meet our intellectual needs. And there's now a third epoch that we're entering into. So we're in a time right now of great change. Of change from the dualistic world and the intellectual world into the new level of oneness. So we can't go back to the unity, we can't go back to the one, so we have to go from 2 to 3. And in a way, it is a return to unity, but it's also a total inclusion, a total love for all that is, an ability to take our intellect and use it as a means, a pathway to precision and impeccability, to doing things so accurately, to being that next level wizard, that we can do things so accurately to work together as a whole so that we can all live in love and ecstasy and an ecstatic life, in exploration and adventure and creativity and color and, dimensions and worlds, that we can play within them all, that our consciousness is so big and our awareness becomes immersed in that total consciousness. So I see the seeds of this third epoch really, really strong in Avalon. I see the seeds that our ancestors sowed so that we could then move through this phase of intellect and then use these old ancient clues to fuel our deep love. And so Richard Rudd teaches in the 60-second gene key, which is the transit we're in right now, what was I going to say? Intellect, the 60-second gene key, we move from intellect. Okay, so the way to the third epoch is through loving all of what is, loving all the constructs, loving the Maya, the illusion of this reality. So embodying love, the pathway of love. And the goddess of Avalon, the lady of Avalon, was an embodiment of love, was purely listening to her intuition, her flow, and in service to the goddess, and allowing that flow to move through her in love. And so now we're taking that energy and bringing it into our intellectual world and saying, you know what? I love it. I love all that is. My work is to love all that is and trust my intuition and follow what is being asked of me. And there's this image of her in the goddess house where it's such a perfect image. I'll also share a picture of it because I bought like a card. I'll share it in my stories after this. That she has all the animals around her. She has this beautiful mountain and silver sacred rivers flowing and springs all around her. And she has a rainbow halo around her head and these faint but glowing deer antlers. And as I was gazing at her, she has like this young beauty, and like all of us, as we're entering our late 30s or, 30s, 40s, late 20s, we're seeing, I have little lines on my face. I'm getting older, and actually with the elder comes wisdom. So it's actually a beautiful thing to age, and I actually feel better talking to a woman that has a little bit of wrinkles, because I feel like those are her wisdom lines. Those are her claiming being herself. Those are her not putting on a mask and trying to hide herself. So as I was gazing at this lady of Avalon, I was seeing that her face had no wrinkles. She looked so young. She looked so beautiful and glowing. And it a little bit triggered me, because for me, wisdom comes with age. You know, when I see someone's lines and wrinkles, I feel that there's a life knowledge, a life experience there. And that's who we really are. So as I was gazing at this image of the Lady of Avalon, I was like, oh, but she's like young. She's like a maiden, you know? And I was meditating with it. And I saw that she is the representation of who we truly are in our soul home. So there's this realm beyond the physical world that is a place where we're free. It's this Garden of Eden. It's this place that is our soul home, that is perfectly fitted for our joy and expansion. And a lot of people in near-death experiences talk about this garden that lives beyond the veil, that we can visit at any time. And so this Lady of Avalon is not in human form. She's actually a representation of our true self as women in our soul home, in our full embodiment of ourselves. So I was able to connect with that and re-grid the maiden, mother, and crone energy within myself, that they're truly all one, and that there's no image that fits any of them, but that they're all a part of the woman that we are and the multidimensional beings that we are. So all of these paintings and all of these images that I was able to see in Avalon were these portals into parts of my being that were being awakened and reflected back at me through this artwork that has been inspired by these ancient seeds that our ancestors have sown on the lands there. And she had this beautiful rainbow halo and these antlers. And as I was gazing at her, after I got past the crone and the maiden integration, I was able to actually feel my own rainbow halo. So I just want to invite that right now, that imagine you have around your head this beautiful rainbow halo. That there's certain mists and water and light that can reveal it, but it's actually there all the time. Your aura around your head. And as I tuned into this rainbow halo, I really saw that my awareness, my consciousness has access to all things, is able to connect to multiple dimensions, is able to be so many different things. So it just reconfirmed the understanding that every one of these images that I'm looking at, that I'm really able to commune with and stay present with, is activating a certain part of me, and I am all of it. I am that multidimensional nature. And then the antlers growing from the head, I also was able to connect to having my own antlers. And this helped me understand that in any case, like in any study that we're doing or anything that we're trying to embody, especially with our work with water, we can actually take on and like put different pieces on our bodies. Like we can grow our mermaid tail, you know, we can put on a suit of armor, we can grow fins or gills, or different, like we can do that. So these antlers also just put me into that Fey realm that's beyond space and time, where miracles occur. Okay? So I also want to tell a little bit about the summer solstice and my journey in the summer solstice at the White Spring. So I was so lucky because on those 8 holidays of the Wheel of the Year, the White Spring is open till late. And on the summer solstice night, it was open till like 2:30 in the morning. So I was able to be there all night and just really play with the experience of being there and receiving the activations from the different shrines in each of the corners, which I'll tell you about. So the White Spring is like a water temple. It's made all of stone, and it feels like a cave inside. And on each of the four corners, there are different shrines. The first shrine is for the sun god. Then there's a shrine for the fairy kingdom. There's a shrine for the Black Madonna. And then there's one for Bridget. So I'll explain what each of those are. But then in the back corner, there's this water that gushes out from the wall, right? The spring water that gushes out. And then it fills these pools. And so each pool will be like a different height until it gets to that central pool of shallow water. And you can go in naked, but you can't like walk around the space naked. So it feels also free, but also respectful. And you can immerse in the waters, and it's very cold. So it really wakes you up, like it connects you. You can go in there and sing, and it's beautiful because the place echoes so much that if you start singing, everyone can hear you, so they'll join you, you know? So I had a few chants going where a lot of people were joining me, and it was so beautiful. So after doing all these immersions in the waters, it opened me up to receiving even more from these shrines. So I didn't get to spend so much time with the Bridget shrine, but this was about the sacred fire and like the maypole and the maiden to mother and the maiden's work in learning how to create fire. And then, you know, I think there's something really, really specific and powerful in the Avalonian teachings around like being a virgin, and then like, you know, what different magical powers virgins have versus like women. So like maiden versus mother kind of energy. And so really enhancing the power of the maiden, and then enhancing the power of the mother, and enhancing the power of the crone. So I really love this about it. So that's the Bridget area. And some people say that that painting looks like Mary Magdalene. Yeah, so then there's the Black Madonna, and the Black Madonna, in case you don't know, is basically Isis, or African queens and goddesses from Egypt and other places in Africa. And Isis was a sexual priestess, a dark goddess. You know, she was a temptress and a powerful woman who was able to, through her own will and feminine power, and through her ability to get what she wanted, was able to steward a golden age on earth, in Egypt and beyond. So she's a representation of how powerful the dark feminine can be when women go after what they want, and how important it is to activate that power within us that's been kind of stamped out for the last few thousand years. And the Black Madonna has survived through these churches all across Europe and even in the Americas, because she's been disguised as Mother Mary. It's like this black statue holding a baby. And so the Catholic and Christian churches thought that she was Mother Mary, so they let her stay. But really she's a representation of the primal dark goddess from Egypt. So there's a shrine for her in one corner. Then there's the sun god corner, which is the entrance. And that's like kind of saying, okay, this is a masculine space. This is, even though this is like a dark cave, it's like full of light, and it's here to activate our inner masculine. And so we revere the sun, and also how the wheel of the year really works with the sun. And then there's the fairy shrine, which was for me like what I worked with the most in this journey, on this night and throughout my time there. And I won't get into all the details because it was kind of, it was really, really interesting and a lot. Excuse me. But I wanted to say that I was gazing at these two paintings. There was a painting, hi Amy. There was a painting and a statue. And as I was gazing at these two paintings, I felt such deep love from, oh my gosh, I had a revelation last night, Amy. So basically what I understood, so I was describing this painting of this man to a friend last night. It was a painting of a sexy man who looked like he was like part tree. Like he looked like he was part of the tree that was behind him. And he had these animals all around him and like a sexy, like an animal on his sexy shoulders. That's what I said. And I looked at a picture of Paul last night, my friend Cockatoo Paul, who I talked about in the beginning of this video, last night, who passed away and who's related to my Merlin guide, Paul, somehow. And I saw a picture of him last night, and it was exactly to a T what I described this painting was to my friend. It was this man with a tree behind him who looked like he was part of the tree, and he had a bird on his shoulder. Paul had a bird on his shoulder, and he's like looking all rugged and like nature strong man. And I was like, oh my God, that painting that I was gazing at was basically him. And I know this sounds like woo-woo and like, you know, super out there, but these were the connections that I was able to make to let the universe show me how supported I am. Let the universe show me that my channelings, my revelations, my spirit guides, the spirits that I feel around me, and the support and the help and the guidance that I get from those guides is real. It's real. It's not just some mistake, like a beautiful mistake, like, oh, that's so wonderful that you feel like you have spirit guides, and like, that's so beautiful. No, it's not, oh, that's so beautiful. It's like, no, this is real. And for 99% of our history, we knew this was real. And it's only in the last 1% or less, like 0.1% of our history, that our intellect has taken over so much that we've decided to go for the logical versus the mythological, which the mythological actually includes all experience. When you think about history books, there is one story in there. One story about millions of people or billions of people. Is that really how it works? No. There's not just one story. That's not how it works. There's actually billions of stories that are not included in our history books because of the fault of the logical. We look at history as a linear thing. This is what happened on this date. This is what happened on this date. This is what happened on this date. But when we look at it from the lens of mythology, we see that there's actually millions of stories that have created that experience over time. And that history is such a one-dimensional view of a 1,000-dimensional world. And so we've become so constricted in the way that we think about things that, like, oh, your spirit guides are so lovely and beautiful. But like, no, actually there's a lot more to this story that we're missing. And there's a lot more that we can be open to in our minds and prescribed to. And as we do this as a collective, as we continue to claim our magic, as we continue to claim the multidimensional nature, as we continue to explore the animate force as it moves through everything, as we continue to enable ourselves to sit in front of a shrine and feel something mysterious, feel something mystical, feel something different. So we allow ourselves to feel that and not just cast it away as some logical and like whimsical thing, but actually say, oh my goddess, thank you. I now made the connections. I pieced together the dots and see that this man who passed away is actually with me in a deeper and more profound way than ever. And I saw him in that painting, and his soul is connected to the Merlin, and his soul was here to teach me something, and it's now my job to unpack what he taught me. I have to unpack what he taught me. It's not like, oh yeah, he taught me lots of stuff, I learned so much, and now I'm moving on with my life. He taught me so much, and this is a sign and a signal and a spiritual guidance to unpack what this man has taught me in his lifetime, because he's now a spirit guide who is with me. And so thank you to the shrines and the waters of Avalon for helping to make magic real. If anything that I took away from this journey, it's that magic is real. My intuition is spot on. It is safe to follow my urges. It is safe to go into the unknown. It is safe to be exposed. And I'm always held by the goddess. But like, I can't deny her movement inside of me. That is the greatest actual sin, right? And all sin literally means disconnection from God. Distance from God. That's all it means. So it's literally an illusion. We're never distant from God, but we think we are. We feel distant from God. So the only sin is to disconnect from God, is to deny our intuition, is to deny our needs and our expression, to deny the pleasure God is moving through us. That is the greatest sin. And that's what Avalon teaches me. And so I'm now praying and opening to more guidance for how to really bring that into life practically, right? Because we're in this era right now where we need to bridge the old world and the new world, where we need to take this ancient wisdom of magic and realize that the way exactly they did things back then isn't necessarily going to serve us to a T right now. You know, we can't repeat what they did. We have to take inspiration and nurture these seeds that they've planted. Our ancestors planted these seeds and now bring them to life in the new way. So the question is like, what does that look like? And so the next time I share one of these lives, I'll talk about my journey in France. And there I received some answers or some more deeper guidance on how to bring those teachings into our modern day life. So I will share more about that in the next video next week. And thank you for joining me. Thank you, Amy. I'm so glad that you found that beautiful and that you're with me on this journey. And thank you so much for supporting my grieving process. I mentioned you already in the beginning of this video that you weren't here. So it's cool that you're now here to thank you personally again. And and I just highly recommend to everybody to travel and meet your sisters abroad. Like, it's the best freaking thing. This is why going on retreats is so amazing, because you get to meet people from all over the world, and then you can meet them in other places in the world. This is like one of my Bibles, my codes to live by is like network with international people and then go visit them. And it's the best. So thank you for supporting my journey and for connecting with me. And I wish that I could host people in Israel, and we'll see where my next place will be. But I know I'll meet so many of you all in different places. And so with a prayer that this supported an awakening within your being and that you received whatever you needed for your day from this transmission and this storytelling and tales from Avalon, and sending you so much love from my heart, so much faith in humanity, so much hope for heaven on earth, a deep knowing that heaven is on earth. And I'll say the Lady's Prayer. So, Our Lady, who lies at the heart of all form, hallowed be thy name. May thy queendom come, and may thy will be done, that heaven should come to earth. May I drink today from your sacred silver springs, and may you forgive me my forgetting, as I learn from your grace to return all non-love with love. And take me by the hand and lead me step by step into the patient valley of your heart. For yours is my body, the earth, and my life, forever and ever. Amen. Love you so much. Thank you. Bye.